Outlaw Lawyer.
Welcome back into the Outlaw Lawyers. We have Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer on set with us. And as always, Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm is where you can find them, managing partners there. They're practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. 46 combined years experience between these two. And again, offices in Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay, Varina, and Gastonia. If you've got your own legal situation right now and you've got questions, I've got a phone number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. Just leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. And you can always email your questions to the program, questions@theoutlawlawyer.com, and check out the website. It's a great one, theoutlawlawyer.com. Gentlemen?
Well, Morgan, up next, and we've talked about this before. We'll talk about it for I don't know how long, but a big legal conversation in our country has been and will be abortion. And so we spent a lot of time talking about Roe v. Wade, kind of where the settled law is, right? What Roe v. Wade says, abortion is legal. States can limit it in certain ways, but there's strong protections in place right now with federal law on what states can do, how they can limit access, how they can limit, just a bunch of limitations. And that's been the settled law since the 70s. And so now this past year, we've got a new Supreme Court that you can argue has kind of a conservative tilt. And they have heard several cases already on not directly overturning Roe v. Wade, but they've heard several cases that will certainly at least weaken Roe v. Wade if the court comes down, like some people speculate they'll come down. And I saw a big article, I think it was the New York Times, but I saw and read a big article. It was really well done, just talking about a lot of states that kind of jumping the gun. Like right now, the Supreme Court has heard oral arguments on a couple of cases, and we've talked about them, Joe. The Texas law, the Texas state law, which looks to. You remember that one? You remember the?
Yeah. So the Texas state law, we deep dive on so many things. We've done a couple of stories on that, and basically what that law tried to do was essentially circumvent the constitutional requirements, and it basically deputized citizens in a way, and it kind of went around the prohibition of state action and gave individuals a vehicle to civilly sue to enjoin basically abortion. So it was kind of we talked about how it was a very unique way to go about prohibiting something, and it kind of just tried to circumvent the constitutional requirement altogether and get around it in a super unique method.
Yeah, and I think at the time, and I still kind of feel this way, I don't like the mechanism, right? Whether you're pro-abortion or you're for abortion, I think most Americans probably fall in that limited abortion
somewhere in the middle.
Yeah, somewhere in the middle.
Sure.
And we're not here to say abortion's right or abortion's wrong. We're just here to tell you about what legally is transpiring. But that Texas state law, I'm real uncomfortable with it, not because it attempts to limit abortion, but like you said, the unique way it tries to punish people who are administering that constitutional right? So I think that Texas state law, you could sue a doctor who performed an abortion, even though abortion is protected and it's constitutionally protected, and that doctor can't face any federal penalties for doing it. Under the state law, I could sue him. If I decided I didn't like the fact he was performing an abortion, it gave me an avenue to sue him for damages, or you could sue somebody who takes someone to have an abortion done, or the secretary at the abortion clinic. So it opened up this avenue to punish people for doing something that was otherwise constitutionally protected. And I don't like that because that could easily be applied to anything. Guns, gun sales, right? If you live in a state that's kind of anti-gun, you have a Second Amendment right to possess a gun. Let's say California decides, okay, well, if Texas can do this to the constitutional right of abortion, we're going to do it to people who sell guns.
Yeah, and you make a good point, man. And that's the thing with there may be, if you look, we don't like to look at things in terms of, conservative versus liberal. We don't like to dissect things that way. But if you look at those traditional perspectives, and traditionally, a conservative is going to, be very much against abortion. You may have a conservative person who looks at this kind of wacky way to prohibit abortions as a good thing because they think abortion is bad and this is stopping abortions. But along those same lines, generally speaking, that's the same type of person who's going to be staunch, gun advocates and gun right advocates. And like you said, the same exact mechanism of action can be used to go after gun rights as well. So it's one of those things where it may be, you may think it's a good thing, but then it can be turned around and it can be used against you. And that's why I'm with you. I hate the way that they went about it, because where does it stop?
Well, and to piggyback on our Cosby conversation, again, the things Cosby is accused of are horrible, but if there's not a system, if there's a way to circumvent, the constitutional protections in place to keep you from, the Fifth Amendment, from incriminating yourself, if you just skip over that because you think Cosby should be in jail, that's this Texas law to me.
Sure.
You're skipping over constitutional protections because you're in game as people shouldn't be allowed to get abortions. And that's fine if you believe that, but getting there that way is not fine if if you believe in the Constitution and you believe in the judiciary and you believe in the separation of powers, then this Texas state law, I think it should have been struck down already.
Yeah.
The fact that it's been in place this long, I just don't think it's a good way to achieve their goal. I think it's a bad precedent, and the longer it survives, the worse off we are. But in response to this, there's been a big national conversation on abortion law, which I think everybody pretty much thought was pretty much settled. It's not something that gets... but anyway, so we got a lot of states who are limiting abortion access weeks. I think a lot of these states are doing 10 weeks, limits that are well under what Roe v. Wade, the law of the land, allows. And so a lot of states are just jumping the gun and making these laws that will get struck down. So I don't know if we're weeks or months away, but at some point we're going to get a very big Supreme Court decision on all these abortion cases that they've been hearing this session. And so those will probably all be put into one opinion. And if they limit Roe v. Wade, then these state laws will stay in effect. But if they don't limit Roe v. Wade, then all these are going to get overturned immediately.
Yeah, and it's like, we talked about the Texas law extensively. We've talked about a few others, but it's interesting, man. And we could speculate on why, why so many states are passing this, what appears to be, at least by the existing standard, overly restrictive legislation. And I don't know, man. I don't know that I have a thought. Maybe they look at the makeup of the court. And again, you don't like to look at the court in terms of political leanings, but I don't know if these states are trying to force that issue to be heard.
Yeah.
It's hard to say, but we're going to see. There's going to be this is forcing the hand of some sort of ruling and some sort of further elaboration on that Roe v. Wade ruling. So we will hear, the court's position, whether it's upheld, whether there's some kind of modification of the standard. I think we're going to see something.
Yeah. And just so people know, we talked about separation of powers, kind of the balance. If the Supreme Court decides something on Roe v. Wade that as a nation, we don't like, there can always be a federal law.
Sure.
Right. So it's not like the U.S. Supreme Court is the be all end all. They are on the things that come before them, but they don't make laws. And so there could always be a federal law regarding abortion. There could always be changes that kind of preempt that. But again, we'll talk about this a lot more. The U.S. Supreme Court is going to issue some big time decisions on abortion, again, in the next few months, definitely before the end of the year. So that'll be something to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. We'll talk about it. And it's like you said, I think if you look at it as it stands today, which is what we really have to do, because you have to look, we have precedent for a reason. And if you look at what the court has ruled previously, I think it's fairly clear that pretty much all of these laws we talked about they're unconstitutional.
Right now, as they stand.
As they stand currently. Yeah. So it's just an interesting route to push that issue, for sure.
Roe versus Wade, not going away, folks. It'll be a topic of discussion on future shows. The Outlaw Lawyers, Josh Whitaker and Joe Hamer. I'm Morgan Patrick, consumer advocate. You can find Josh and Joe at Whitaker and Hamer Law Firm. They're the managing partners there, practicing attorneys here in North Carolina. 46 combined years experience between these two. And again, offices pretty much everywhere. We call them the Starbucks of lawyers.
That's right.
Raleigh, Garner, Clayton, Goldsboro, Fuquay-Varina, and Gastonia. If you've got a legal question that you're facing and you need some answers, here's a number for you, 800-659-1186. That's 800-659-1186. And you can get in touch. Just leave your contact information, briefly what the call's about, and an attorney with Whitaker and Hamer will be in touch. You can also email us questions@theoutlawlawyer.com. We'll answer those questions on future programs. And always visit the website, theoutlawlawyer.com. Coming up, 4 men facing federal charges on conspiring to kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer back in 2020. That's coming up next on The Outlaw Lawyer.